What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Mock Draft Guy YouTube channel. And in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the most overrated prospect at every single position in the NFL draft, minus special teams, of course. But a couple days ago, I released my underrated prospects for the 2024 NFL draft. So this is going to be the overrated one. Now, let me just, do a quick public service announcer, a quick disclaimer. This is not me saying that these players are not going to be good at the NFL level. The way that I categorized the underrated prospects were players that on tape and in game film look great, but if you look at big boards and where they're valued, they're relatively low for what their game tape shows. For me, it's kind of the opposite with the overrated. It's, these guys are highly touted, and then I just didn't see it for the most part. But there are some players on here that have a little bit different descriptions of overrated, so we are going to get into it. But before we do, if you can, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy draft content like this. Been dropping an immense amount of draft content since, I don't know, the NFL draft last year was the end of April. I'd say since June. I go about 10 months out of the year. I take some time off in May, and then 10 months out of the year is just basically draft content for that upcoming draft. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. You won't be disappointed. So let's get into this right now for the overrated prospects. And number one for me is going to be Joe Milton out of the quarterback. So if I didn't mention this before, this will be one prospect from every position that I consider a little bit overrated. So Joe Milton is someone early on in the draft cycle this past season. I said, wow, this guy, if he puts it all together, because the arm, the size, the athleticism is clearly there. I mean, the guy has one of the strongest, if not the strongest arms I've ever seen. And that's no exaggeration. He has a howitzer on his right shoulder. The guy has an incredible arm. But it's really every other aspect of his game that just is super lackluster. And people see, him without pads, myself included. I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a hypocrite here. I'll be the first to admit I have posted very many shorts of Joe Milton throwing the ball like 70, 80 yards down the field because it's really cool to see. It really is. But no pads, no pass rush, obviously. Like, what good is that? What good are those throws to me? And in the game, I mean, there's just so many different things. Tennessee is a predetermined read offense for the most part. One thing that you see in Joe Milton's game, even if his predetermined read is not there, he will still try and force the ball into that read. His pre-snap, post-snap processing is not great. His pocket awareness is not great. He's an overall gritty competitor when it comes to escaping the pocket. And he's a relatively decent playmaker once he escapes the pocket. But, it's no good. He has really relatively no experience under center. This is all things that he's going to have to learn. He's also an advanced age prospect too. I believe he's a fifth year senior. I don't remember off the top of my head, but was at Michigan as well. This is his second or third season in Tennessee. I believe it's his second season. I could be wrong. But yeah, I went into this season saying if he has a Hendon Hooker type of year, like Hendon Hooker had last year for Tennessee, I could see him with his intangibles getting into that late first round, early day two range. But for me personally, I wouldn't touch Joe Milton until day three, preferably round 5, round 6. I really hope the kid develops and he lives up to that incredible potential that he has in his frame and in his arm, because I would love to see Joe Milton starting every Sunday throwing 75-yard bombs. But really, as a football player, he leaves a lot to be desired. And then from the running back category, I have Aundre Eese here out of Notre Dame. And there is a lot to like about Eese. He's a competitive runner. He's got great vision as well. He's going to be someone that is not going to be easy to bring down. He's got an incredible frame, I believe 5'9", 221 pounds. But he's going to be, for me, a strictly two-down type of back, someone that's going to be that Mike Tolbert type of player. That was my pro comparison for Aundre Eese is Mike Tolbert, someone that's going to run between the tackles. He's not going to blow you away with his speed. He does have decent explosiveness for his size, I will say, but 4.71 speed, he's not going to be bending rushes outside the tackle down the sideline anytime soon. This is someone that is purely going to have to be in a committee at the NFL level. He really doesn't offer too much as a pass catcher as well. He's pretty stiff in his hips as well. And he's just really a straight line guy for me. Nothing personal. I just think this is a perfect situation where I just think there are a lot of players better than him that are lower on a lot of big boards. So, like, for instance, let's say PFN, right? They have Aundre Eese as the 118th prospect, somewhere around there. It's 118, 122. And then you have Marshawn Lloyd as 150 something, where Marshawn Lloyd, I think, has 3 down hype as an NFL player. And there are people that are drafting Estime over Jalen Wright, guys like that, even Blake Corum. I just don't see it. I think Estime is going to be a perfect 2 down back, going to run on short yardage downs as well. Someone that's going to get you those necessary yards, but he's going to have to be in a committee. So this is someone that, I would take a lot of other running backs over, to be quite honest with you. Isaac Garriendo is someone that I think has 3 down appeal. Dylan Laube is another guy I think has 3 down appeal as well. Estime is just that guy to me that is just going to be that straight line, short yardage back that's going to get you exactly what you need in a pinch. Wide receiver here. I have Brendan Rice. And I'll be honest with you, Brendan Rice is kind of a casualty of the fact that I just don't think that a lot of these wide receivers are overrated. I mean, I'm really scraping that. This is nothing personal against Brendan Rice, but if I'm bringing up Brendan Rice as an overrated or overhyped prospect, it kind of seems like I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel to find someone. I looked up and down. One guy that I considered as well was Devontae Walker, but I just think Walker has so many more explosive traits than Brendan Rice does. Now, don't get me wrong, Brendan Rice was a fine receiver at USC. He was a fine receiver at Colorado. He offers some nice size for a boundary wide receiver and really, really good toughness and aggressiveness. That's what I love about his game. What I love about his game is that he is a competitor on every single snap. He's so physical at the point of contact too, almost to the point where you think he's going to get an offensive pass interference penalty on those those press coverage snaps those press snaps that he has to win at the line of scrimmage. I got my words twisted there on that one. I was thinking we were going defense for a second, but Brendan Rice is someone to me that as an athlete, he's not going to blow you away in open field situations. He's not going to be a catch and run type of guy. His route tree isn't really developed either as well. This is someone that can win down the field, but he's going to have to win physically, and he wins his reps physically every time. He's a one-trick pony, in my opinion. Someone that I just can't see getting open with finesse, with his, the sink in his hips. He doesn't have any believability in his routes. This is something that can be, coached as time goes on. But I see him in some mock drafts in, the 3rd round, late day 2. This, to me, Brendan Rice is a day 3 prospect with some really nice upside. I could see him as, a 3rd option in an offense or maybe like a wide receiver 4 or something like that, with a chance to develop with guys in front of him as well. But, as someone that, to me, a day 2 pick is someone that's going to contribute right away. That's going to be someone that you're looking to put in your starting lineup right away. And I just can't see Brendan Rice being a starting wide receiver right now with his current attributes. That's just me, though. For the tight end position, I have Theo Johnson. Now, a lot of people will be quick to say, oh my God, he's such a tremendous athlete. He's a decent blocker, all that kind of stuff. And he is. And he's got amazing size, too. 6'6", 260 pounds, incredibly athletic, 4.59 40-yard dash too. He's got it all in terms of athletics and intangibles. What I think is we're quick to look at some of these tight end prospects outside of Brock Bowers, Ben Sinnott, Jatavion Sanders, Cade Stover, Jared Wiley, guys like that. And we're looking for that next man up. And Theo Johnson is someone that really just doesn't have any production at the collegiate level in terms. I know that he led the Nittany Lions last year in receiving touchdowns with 7. To be quite honest with you, that's really not saying too much, but he's got receiving upside. But for me, I'm not drafting a player like Theo Johnson in the first 3 rounds. This is a day 3 prospect for me, purely because he's not good enough at either aspect of being a tight end for me to be like, okay, well, he's not as good of a blocking tight end. So I'm going to throw him out there as a primary receiving target. He's not that guy that's going to, he can catch and he could run. He's not that guy that's going to, win really in the intermediate. He's not going to blow you away with his release package or his route running ability. He's someone that can win up the seam, sure. And then, oh, well, he's not really that great of a receiver, so I'm going to leave him as an inline blocker. Then I feel like you're really wasting a pick if you're going to leave Theo Johnson as an inline blocker, or in 12 personnel as just a blocker. He's a fine pass blocker. He leaves a little bit to be desired as a run blocker. Even with his athletics and his size, he actually doesn't really pack that much of a punch when it comes to blocking in space. So that's something that he has to work on. But he has all the intangibles. Like this is someone that I feel like with pro level coaching can turn into something that's really, really nice at the next level. For me, he seems like more of a Tyler Croft type of player, someone that is a huge body that's going to catch touchdowns close to the goal line, going to be a pretty decent blocker, and he's going to carve out a nice career for himself. But I don't see a superstar when I look at Theo Johnson. Okay, and this might be maybe the most controversial one out of the bunch, to be quite honest with you. And that's going to be Amari Mims at the tackle position for me. Now, don't get me wrong, because you can go back on videos as recently as my 1 round mock draft with Ryan Fowler from Bleacher Report. And I said that if Amari Mims hits on his potential, he could be the best tackle out of this entire class. And that's really saying something when you have Talisi Fuaga, Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, guys like that, JC Latham. We can go on, Troy Fautanu. But I just think the overall athleticism is incredible. For someone that's 6'7" or 6'8", 340 pounds, he's rocked up. I mean, if you see a picture of him without pads on, you're going to say, how is this man an offensive tackle? You can kind of see it from this picture here, too. He's not a wide body guy. He is a rocked up 340 pounds. He's got it all in terms of athletics as well. But my issue with him is this seems like the biggest boomer bust offensive tackle prospect in the entire draft class. This is someone that's going to need a ton of development and a ton of coaching at the pro level because he only has 7 starts under his belt in collegiate football. He was injured last year. He appears 7 starts, but he's appeared in, I believe, 28 games in his collegiate career. But I'm talking about starts from start to finish. And I believe he has 7 or 8 starts, 1 at left tackle, like 6 or 7 at right tackle. So there's really not a ton of experience there. He's like a ball of clay, in my opinion. And for me, I know that a lot of NFL teams draft in the first round with, all right, this guy has to be an instant contributor right away. He's got to be an instant star. And then there are other teams that draft and go, well, we're going to bank on this guy's potential because if he hits on his potential, then he's going to be an all-pro, Pro Bowl level type of player. And that's who I believe Amari Mims is going to be if he hits on his potential. But the injury concerns and the pure rawness in his game just kind of scare me a little bit. And especially since he doesn't really know how to use that power that he possesses yet in terms of the run game. In pass protection, he's got pretty consistent reps. And he really does. He's got tremendous anchor. He really does shut down the opposition pass rush when he gets his hands in the frame. But this is someone that needs a ton of development. I'm maybe the Rams, I'd say, that you're kind of playing with house money in a sense because the Rams haven't had a first-round pick in like 8 years. I'm willing to take the chance on Amari Mims as someone that I could develop and become that superstar stud tackle. Maybe a team that doesn't need him to start right away would be ideal. Maybe even if he slides to someone like the San Francisco 49ers, that'll be your Trent Williams replacement long term. I don't know. I think he's going to be great if he gets the proper development. That's what I'm saying. I think he's got it all. He's got it all. He just needs the proper coaching and he needs time to develop. That's all I'm saying. So now when we go to guard, I have Mason McCormick here. And it's so funny because a lot of these prospects that I'm talking about are guys that I kind of hyped up in a sense. I did NFL draft diamond shorts on these guys. I've done, prospect profiles on them. I've talked them up in my mock drafts. Mason McCormick is someone that I've talked up quite a bit over the last couple of months as someone that I think is going to be an instant impact player at the NFL level. And I still believe that. But some of this talk, I think we have to rein in some of this talk of him being a very early day 2 prospect. To me, there's a couple things. I mean, his athleticism is second to none, literally. He is the most athletic guard in terms of RAS score in the entire draft class. There's no denying that. Experience, he has over 3,000 collegiate snaps under his belt as well. So that's something that, you know, I hold, like I just talked about, Amari Mims doesn't have the experience. This is something that's a checked box in the right column. That's something that I like. 3,000 snaps. He's got to be one of the most experienced players in the entire draft class, actually. His feet, his footwork, a little bit slow in his mechanics in terms of, you know, being able to shuffle his feet out from under him. I feel like he blocks a little bit off balance. He plays too far in front of his feet at times. And for someone who is athletic, as McCormick actually is, like in terms of just being an overall athlete, he shows pretty poor athleticism when it comes to reacting to slanted rushes. So when he has to shift his protection over, he doesn't really do a great job of squaring up his opponent. It's kind of more of like a lunge block, kind of like I'm going to chip you, something like that. So, McCormick is someone that I think overall, athletically, experience wise, size, he's got all the intangibles in terms of being a quality NFL starter. But early day two, where I've seen him in some mock drafts being taken over guys like Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes. I mean, these are guys that are going to be, in my opinion, Pro Bowl level guards at the NFL level. I don't know if Mason McCormick gets there. I think he's going to be a solid starter for 8 to 10 years in the NFL. So that's great. I mean, in round three, or maybe even he slides to round four inside the top, 120 picks, whatever it may be. That, I feel like that's great for a guy drafted in that range. But high day two for me is just a little bit too much for someone that's a little bit of an older prospect and still doesn't have quite enough polish as you would think for someone that has 3,000 snaps in his collegiate career. Now we move over to the center position, and I am just ragdolling these Georgia offensive linemen in this video, and I apologize. But for the center position, I have Cedric Van Pran, or Cedric Van Pran Granger, whatever you may call him. It's tough because this is another situation where I just think there are so many other players that are better suited at the NFL level. I think that he's going to be a fine player in the NFL. My problem with him, I believe he has beefed up since the NFL Combine, but coming in at 6'4", 298 pounds, immediate red flag right there. Because playing in college, in his reps, you could see he doesn't really necessarily possess the core strength to have that significant anchor that you need for a center position. I use this comparison for my underrated prospects with Tyler Biadasz, where if you watch Dallas Cowboys games from the past, even though he was 6'4", 321 pounds, he didn't necessarily possess that core strength, and he was consistently in Dak Prescott's lap almost every single drop back. You don't want that from a center. So Granger is someone that Cedric Van Pran Granger relies more on the finesse and his overall athleticism, but he does have short arms. He lacks that core strength. So for me, I feel like he's going to be someone that's going to be pushed back into his quarterback quite a bit at the NFL level. You're facing bigger, stronger, faster guys. And, he plays similar to Mason McCormick. He plays a little bit too over his toes at times too. So you add off balance, lack of core strength, short arms. That's a terrible combination, to be honest with you. To be off balance at that position is not great. So this is someone that, I'll be quite honest with you, if I had to rank my centers, it would probably be in terms of pure center. Now I might get flack for this, but I don't really care. So I think Zach Frazier is the best overall center in the entire class. Then you have Jackson Powers Johnson. Then I'd say Bo Limmer is up there. Tanner Bornolini is up there as well. Hunter Norzad, guys like that. Even Matt, I wouldn't rank Matt Lee, who was in my underrated video, over Cedric Van Pran Granger, but he's certainly close. So I think he's a tad overrated in terms of his draft position. I feel like based on the fact that the center class may be a little bit top heavy, I feel like people are mocking him in the third round. To me, I feel like he's more of a fourth, fifth round type of guy. Like I said, I might catch a lot of flack for that, but it's just what I see on tape. I mean, you could clearly see he lacks the core strength, and you can't argue with the overall intangibles, the physical lengths. You can't argue with those. Those are written in stone for what they actually are. So just for me, I feel like he just lacks a little bit of strength at a rather important position where you need to be strong in the NFL. So we have Braylon Trice here as my edge rusher that I think is just a tad overrated. Now, to be fair, I guess over the course of the draft cycle, people have been seeing a little bit more of what I saw in terms of, he was someone that was considered, I believe, a top half of the first round prospect before the draft cycle really got going. And as time went on, he slowly dipped to the second, third round I've seen. So that's about where I think he should be. I think he's a late second round, early third round prospect. For me, I know that the pressure numbers are there. I mean, he consistently gets pressure. But if you watch his highlights or his game tape, like I have a bunch of times where I've tried to get myself to like Braylon Trice as more of a player. I just can't. He gets stonewalled way too many times for me to think that he's going to have as big of an impact at the NFL level. Not to mention, we thought he was going to weigh in somewhere around that 6'4", 275-pound mark. He came in at 6'3", 245 pounds, 30 pounds under what he was supposed to, or at least be in the ballpark of around that 275-pound range. Because for me, I don't see the athleticism to be able to be a stand-up outside linebacker or rush linebacker. And at 245 pounds and 6'3", I don't really think he possesses the size to be, a defensive end in a 4-3. So I don't really know where there's a good place for him per se. I know that there are some snaps where you do see that explosive get off that he does have, and I think that's where the pressures come from. But in terms of, if a tackle kicks out and is able to meet him square, he was stonewalled almost every single time. So he's really relying on that explosive first step. And for me, you got to have way more than an explosive first step in the NFL to be anything more than just a situational pass rusher. So I think for me, I think late round two, early round three is probably the perfect sweet spot for him, in my opinion, instead of round one or early round two. So for the defensive tackle position, I have Chris Jenkins, and I like Chris Jenkins a lot, and I think that he will project really well to the NFL level for me because he's a great athlete. He's a great athlete, and he's a great run stopper. I wanted to say stopper and stuffer at the same time, and Stoffer came out. So like Stoffer's, what is that stuff? Stouffer's microwave lasagna. I don't know, whatever. Don't listen to me anymore. But yeah, I think that Chris Jenkins is someone that to me is a little interesting to project at the next level where he would fit best, because at the 3 tech, I'm looking for someone that has a little bit more pass rushing under his belt, or at least more developed pass rush under his belt. And I don't see that with Chris Jenkins. I see someone that eats up blocks, that's great against the run, and is a tremendous athlete. He's got good explosiveness off the line of scrimmage too. He just has nothing in terms of his pass rushing bag. I mean, it's a bull rush, and really that's it. He doesn't possess that quickness or that, elite mindset. He doesn't. I'll say this. I don't think he goes into pass rushing snaps with a game plan for what he's going to do. I think he kind of just lets his arms do what they're going to do, and he just tries to ball over the center or the guard or whatever gap he's rushing through. So to me, he's more of a guy that I think is going to be a great run stuffer at the NFL level. He doesn't possess that massive, like 320, 330 pound size that you're going to see from a prototypical nose tackle. But I think he's going to be someone that's super solid in an odd front, that's going to get pressure, going to generate pressure from the inside, and going to be a solid run stuffer. But he's not going to offer too much in terms of being a pass rusher, in my opinion. So where he's ranked right now in that middle of the second round, late second round, I think that's perfect. I just think that a lot of people, I've seen Chris Jenkins drafted at late first round over like Johnny Newton and Leonard Taylor and guys that offer a little bit more in terms of being a pass rushing 3 tech. And I don't see that from Chris Jenkins. So for me at the linebacking position, I have Cedric Gray. Now, I think Cedric Gray is someone that is kind of caught in that nebulous that I talked about before, where I just feel like there are better overall prospects around him, where I think he's going to be a fine player at the NFL level. I just think there are guys that are ranked under him that I think will be better. I think Jalen Ford, Tyrone Hopper, even Trevin Wallace, guys like that, I think are going to have better careers or project better to the NFL than Cedric Gray. Because to me, Gray is someone that doesn't excel in any real aspect of being a linebacker. I feel like in terms of having those instincts, especially when it comes to run defending, he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have that instinctual step up and, fill a gap or something. He's more of a reactive tackler as well, and does a pretty poor job of that, to say the least, as well. There are many missed tackles on his all 22, and it's just it's a little discouraging because as a coverage linebacker, he's not bad. Doesn't possess that overall athleticism that I would be comfortable having him out there against the tight ends or covering wheel routes on the running backs and guys like that. He's a decent blitzer as well, offers a little bit something in that realm as well. To me, he's a fine linebacker for what a linebacker used to be, where I feel like a linebacker would be someone that is just that second level of defense that's there to really tackle. And I feel like that's what Cedric Gray can do to a decent enough point where he's going to be, a fringe starter at the NFL level. I think he's more of a rotational linebacker, someone that's going to get in there on third downs and stuff. But as an every down linebacker or as an off ball linebacker, I just don't see it for the most part. I think a fourth or fifth round selection is perfect for Cedric Gray. He can develop, of course. He does have the intangibles. The overall production score at the combine, he was number one in terms of all linebackers as well. But this is someone that I think does everything pretty okay, but does nothing elite, in my opinion. So that's why I think he's just a touch overrated at this point in the draft. At the cornerback position, I have TJ Tampa. Now, again, like many other guys in this video, he falls under the category of the class is just so strong that he's the one that I feel like is getting a lot of love in the draft process that I shouldn't say doesn't deserve it. That's something that I don't think is a correct way to describe that, is someone that's getting just a little overhyped. For me, TJ Tampa is a great physical cornerback. He's going to get up in your face. He's going to jam. He's going to go up and run support very well. That's something that NFL teams look for. Tackling, well, I shouldn't say tackling. I'll get to that in a minute. Aggressive corners that are willing to help in the run game is always a plus. Now, for me, he, against double moves, against slippery route runners, he just it gets lost sometimes. And I don't like that a lot because you're going to see a lot of double moves. You're going to see a lot of, I was going to say misleading. You're going to see a lot of guys trying to elude corners of, pre-snap, all that kind of stuff. I just don't see him having the overall speed and the overall athleticism to kind of keep up with some of those guys down the field. And then tackling is an issue as well. In the open field, TJ Tampa is not a good tackler in the open field. So I feel like for some specific teams, he's a really, really good fit. I honestly can see him being a perfect fit maybe in round 2 to the Pittsburgh Steelers if they're looking for an upgrade in the secondary as well. I feel like he's got good jam at the line of scrimmage. And if he could knock the wide receiver off his route early, he definitely has enough speed to keep up with the wide receiver. But if the wide receiver gets a free release and he's got a shot in the open field, they're going to run right past TJ Tampa. So for me, I've seen him quite a few times being selected in the first round or really high round 2. I just don't think that's the case with some of these guys that aren't getting enough love. Personally, I would take Kyrie Jackson, Renardo Green, Cam Hart, all these guys over TJ Tampa. I think he's a third round prospect, to be quite honest with you. Early round 3, but this late first round, early round 2 just isn't it for me. And then to wrap up this video, this is a killer for me because this is my guy. This is Cameron Kinchens out of Miami, safety. And it kills me to say, man, I said it a couple times on some videos that Kalen King, Cameron Kinchens, and James Williams should write a book together to say how to tank your draft stock in 6 months, because Kalen King was someone you could check the video. You can go back in my NFL prospect profiles for this draft cycle, and you could see that I said Kalen King had the potential before the season started to be the best overall corner out of this draft class. Now, I think he's going to be an undrafted free agent, to be quite honest with you. Cam Kinchens is someone that, as the All-Star circuit after the season went on, his draft stock just went down, down, down as time went on. It started off at the Senior Bowl in one-on-ones. I mean, he's a safety that's relatively slower than other corners. I didn't really expect him to do that well, but he was just like an easy catch every time. I hate using this terminology because these guys are world-class athletes, and I'm an athlete, but I am not a world-class athlete. I felt kind of confident if I went up one-on-one against Cam Kinchens with some cushion, I'd be able to get a catch underneath on him. Same thing at the combine as well. He tested out really bad. I think he had the second worst broad jump of all time. I could be wrong. It could be just for safeties, but I feel like it was the second worst broad jump of all time. And his RAS score, I believe I saw it was like in the twos or something like that. He just, and for me, a lot of times I say that the game tape doesn't lie, but if you do watch a lot of Cam Kinchen's interceptions or big time plays, it really does seem like a boomer bust. Like he's a very Marcus Peters type of player to me, and a low end version of Marcus Peters too. And I am aware that Marcus Peters is a corner and Cam Kinchens is a safety, but this is someone I feel like could be a really nice rotational third safety. Someone that comes in, he could play like a Geno Stone type of role for a team where he comes in, he's a ball hawking safety, gets a lot of interceptions, makes a lot of plays, but I don't see him as someone that's going to start in a, as a strong safety or a free safety. He's just going to be that third safety in a rotation. A lot of teams do like to play three safeties now, so he will see the field quite a bit. But in terms of just, I don't know, as someone that I thought he could be a first round pick at one point, I was just so genuinely disappointed as his draft stock just tanked and fell off a cliff after every single showcase event. So I think Cam Kinchens is someone that is probably going to be a day two selection. Could quite possibly see him fall into the beginning of day three. I would personally love that as a Jet fan, someone who, their team needs a safety. I would definitely take a chance on day three on Cam Kinchens, but his draft stock has just really gone downhill since the beginning of the season. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There is my overrated prospect for every position in the 2024 NFL draft class. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. And please, if you think that there is a prospect at a certain position that I did not highlight, please feel free to put that prospect in the comment section below. I would love to discuss other prospects as well. As you know, there are certainly guys that are overrated that I probably didn't pick in this one as well. I'm sure someone's going to say Caleb Williams somewhere over there. So, we'll see. But thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.